Hi there, thank you for joining me today. So let's go ahead and start with the questions. Before you joined KCP, what were you hoping to get out of the experience and how did it end up changing you as a person?
So I wanted to study Japanese seriously. So I'd studied a little in college. After graduating college, I wanted to, during COVID, I really felt that, I wanted to try the opportunity to learn a language. So I decided that I wanted to study a language seriously. And I heard that KCP was a really good program for that. And I think what it did was it really gave me a place to focus very intently on learning a language. So they basically created a very good environment for me to focus completely on learning Japanese for about almost 2 years.
Can you describe a moment in class when you really felt your Japanese skills click, or maybe a time when a teacher helped something really make sense in your head?
Yeah, so I would study grammar on the side from like an N2 grammar workbook. And so sometimes I would be very confused by, the description of something. I would go and ask, one of my teachers, and they would always, find time to add, to just, explain these concepts, even though they weren't stuff that we were necessarily learning in our textbook. That there were other concepts in Japanese, and they spent a lot of time, really explaining this to me. So I think that was, it happened many times, but it was, this aspect of the teachers going sort of, above and beyond to help not just with, the stuff that we covered in class, but also, this sort of side study stuff, which was really, really helpful for me.
Tell us what part of your daily routine at KCP brought you the most joy or surprise.
I liked so in many of the classes we would do like a 5-minute warm up. So that would always be very nice for, trying to sort of warm up your like speaking ability before you started going over, whether you were going over grammar that day or whether you were going over, long reading, any of that stuff. First, you would always have, 5 minutes or so to sort of warm up talking to your classmates. So I always enjoyed that. It was a good time to sort of hear what people were doing. It was also a good time to sort of, sometimes there were topics. So we would talk about, individual topics sometimes. So it was always something very nice. I liked doing that.
Tell me about your housing or your home stay. What's a memory or moment that really stuck with you from that experience?
So I really liked where I lived. I was in Ichikawa in Chiba Prefecture, which is a nice city about an hour away from Tokyo. I think something that really stuck with me is if, you were sort of, uncomfortable on the Tokyo subway line and, the amount of people who use it. I think that taking the train every morning is a great way to get used to that. It's rush hour. There's a lot of people. Everybody sort of files in, but, you sort of get, it's a good way to get used to, participating in a different society, participating in, this morning rush, even though, there's everybody's standing together, or there's standing room only in the train. I think that it's a good way to, sort of get used to what it feels like to live in, Tokyo or to live near Tokyo.
Was there a cultural experience or encounter in Japan that completely changed how you see the world or maybe how you see yourself?
Yeah, I had always been interested in Japanese folklore and Japanese performing arts. I was familiar with kabuki. I was familiar with bunraku, which is puppet shows. I was also familiar with no, which is the very old form of theater using masks, but I had never seen no play before. I had sometimes heard that no is the most difficult for not just foreign people, but also for many younger Japanese people to, get involved with. It's very esoteric. It uses very ancient Japanese. It's sung, so it can be very difficult to understand. I went to see, as part of an offer from the school where they gave us discounted tickets, I went to see a no play at the National Theater in Tokyo, and it was completely like eye-opening. It felt just beyond anything I'd ever seen before. It was just a very amazing experience. It's almost hard to describe in the way, but it feels like, almost like watching like hypnotism on stage in a way. The way that the atmosphere is created through the singing and the motions and the chorus and stuff. So I think that, I'd originally approached Noah with this feeling that, I probably wasn't going to enjoy this because it was, so difficult to access. But, because thanks to KCP, I was able to, observe that. And, I've come away with like a very deep love of No. I've gone to several other No plays after. It's a really fascinating art form. So it was totally eye-opening for me. I never expected to be that interested in No plays, honestly.
What's one way the KCP staff made you feel seen or supported? Talk to us about how they made you feel understood during your time abroad.
I mean, always, a great thing about KCP is that the American staff I was working with, were very helpful if we encountered a problem. I had I needed a dentist. For example, I reached out to the school. The school was able to provide a dentist. I needed to see an ear doctor. I got sick at one point. I needed to see a doctor. The school reached out and, suggested a local clinic. So the school was just really helpful. If you ever had, an issue come across, you could basically, you could always go ask, somebody at the front desk, like, hey, I need to go see a doctor and I'm not sure if I can, communicate properly yet. Do you have a suggestion for that? Or, I received a letter on, like city taxes or something. Can you give me an explanation on what I'm supposed to do with this? It was just really helpful. They were really a vital part in making you sort of, acclimate to living in a different country.
What was it like building relationships with students in the program? Are there any friendships or memories that really stand out to you?
Yeah, I mean, I am in contact with people still from the program. Americans. One of the great things about KCP is it is a global program, and so you'll meet Americans, you'll meet people from Europe, you'll meet a lot of Chinese students, a lot of Korean students. So it's a wonderful place to meet Vietnamese students too. I mean, a lot of people come to KCP, so it really is a global, program. So for me, great things is as I took a group to see the Sanja Matsuri in Asakusa, which is this huge festival in late May, where they parade through the streets with these huge shrines that they carry. I consider it one of the most entertaining things to one of the best festivals in the country. And it was really fun to be able to bring other people to see that, who I met in my class. So I think that a really great thing about this program is it offers you to build friendships with people not just from your own country, but from all other countries. It really helps develop sort of this global perspective on things.
Looking back, what's one moment that made you realize how much you have grown either personally or academically?
Personally, I went to Nagano for a trip during Golden Week last year, and I was able to get around pretty much without any issue. So it sort of is, you sort of realize, like, compared to Tokyo, I mean, the amount of people who can communicate, in English and Nagano is a lot smaller. So, I was waiting for the bus on my way back, and, an elderly man, just came up to me and was like, oh, what are you doing? Oh, I'm waiting for a bus. And we just started talking, and we talked for, an hour. He wanted to tell me about, he wanted to see what I was doing in Nagano, basically, because he said, I'm always interested when tourists come to, Nagano. So that was a realization. And it's like, again, like, language is something that, improves every day. You're never, finish really learning a language, I think you just sort of always are working on it. But you sort of can compare yourself to, when I came to Japan, I knew a couple of Japanese words. I could read hiragana, I could read katakana. I couldn't really read kanji, and to go from that to be, able to sort of sit and communicate with people and hold a conversation, is really, to this day, it still surprises me, compared to where I was, 2 years ago when I first, almost 3 years ago now when I first moved to Japan. So compared to now where I can, talk to people all day in Japan.
How has your experience at KCP really shaped what you want to do next, whether that's in school, work, or life?
Well, one thing is it really ignited my passion for Japanese. I told myself, if I was going to try it for 6 months, if it didn't work out, I'd come back to the United States. At least I know, look, I tried it. It wasn't for me, and what I learned, just after 2 or 3 months of being there is that, I really loved living in Japan. I really loved speaking, a different language, every day. That's sort of a really amazing thing. I don't think, people think about enough. And so one thing that, working with KCP really, fixed for me was it made me, realize how much that I enjoyed living in Japan and how much, more I wanted to, learn about the country. There's so much more stuff that I've become interested in since moving into Japan, and starting with KCP. All sorts of cultural things that, before I didn't have much interest in, like, for example, No or Kabuki or, Hanafuda cards or Kokeshi dolls, all that stuff, I didn't really have much interest in before I moved to Japan. And then, once I started, living in Japan and speaking Japanese, learning Japanese, engaging with the culture, it really became, sort of my fascination for the country and for, traditional culture, and Japanese culture has just really deepened a lot more. So I think that's something that, what KCP did was create, really create this sense of curiosity in me, that, I'm still following and still finding every day new things that I didn't know about, Japanese culture. So it's, every day is, something new and I don't know, that's a very exciting thing to be able to do, I think.
If someone is thinking about joining KCP, what would you say to them? What do you wish someone had maybe told you before you went on this experience?
So I would say the first thing is to understand that, this is a serious course. You will be doing a lot of, writing. You will be doing a lot of, practicing Japanese, a lot of speaking. You will take tests. So I would say, with that in mind, prepare to a little bit. You will, you'll hit the ground running, and once the semester starts. So it benefits you to, even if you're a beginner at Japanese, to have, hiragana and katakana down. But I would really say, the major thing is just to try it. You might not find it's a good match for you, but I think that, trying something is always good. And I think especially when it comes to, trying, living in another country, I think this is, I can't recommend this more than anything else. I think this is a great, place to start. So, but I would say, definitely for students, prepare a little bit. It does help, so you don't want to be learning hiragana your first day of school. You want to sort of be a little bit prepared for this. So I do think that, keep in mind that it is an academic course, so you will be doing a lot of, academic stuff, which, is the only way to learn a language. So I think that it's important to keep that in mind.